My name is Michael Jordan, and this is my story of how my wife's personal hygiene issues ruined our marriage and family. My wife, now ex-wife, is Christina Jordan. We met on a blind date organized by mutual friends of ours. She had just graduated from college and was working at First United National Bank. Her business management degree got her into the junior management program. I had just started at Allied Accounting and was new in town, so one of my coworkers, Harry, set me up on a double date. Harry and Brenda had been dating for about 6 months, and they thought Christina and I would find common interests. An evening of accountants and business interns. Sounds fun, right? It was pretty obvious that we had one thing in common. We were both not going to make love that evening. While I would have liked to have found this pretty blonde a little more relaxed, she was clearly keeping a wary eye out, trying to avoid any physical contact. She was dressed in a heavy sweater, long skirt, and jacket that completely concealed her figure. We spent the evening discussing our career ambitions. It turned out that our dreams for the future were remarkably similar. We both came from middle-class families, growing up in modest towns. I dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur and using my accounting background to distinguish between good deals and just good deals. She wanted stability, climbing the corporate ladder with the opportunity to take maternity leave several times to have children. It gave her hope that someday someone would have sex with her, maybe even a few times. The evening ended with me walking her back to her apartment. She gave me a quick and passionless hug, thanking me for the evening. It was better than spending the evening alone over a beer in her small apartment. On Monday, Harry came into my office and high-fived me. I joked, "You must have had a great night with Brenda on Saturday," handing out fives left and right. Harry smiled and said, "Yes, Brenda and I had a great time, but I congratulate you. Christina couldn't stop talking about you to Brenda. You made quite an impression on her. She told me to tell her to have you call her. Just like high school, isn't it?" It was a nice evening, but I didn't think I made that much of an impression. Perhaps I really should give her a call. Christina seemed to know us better than I did. After a couple months, I found out what was hiding underneath her heavy clothes. She could have easily been a Playboy model. Large round breasts, firm flat stomach, and perfectly shaped thighs that welcomed the man who had won her heart. I was mesmerized by her gorgeous figure, especially when she got out of bed to go to the bathroom. She told me that she turned into a real beauty in high school and often faced unwanted attention. That's why she preferred to dress modestly to avoid unnecessary stares. Our relationship quickly moved to the next level with great sex and a strong emotional bond based on admiration, trust, and caring for each other. We fell in love. Marriage was inevitable, and soon we had 2 children, Monica and Miranda. Sex remained great before the kids were born and got even better after they were born. We bought our first house and the obligatory minivan. Christina was rapidly advancing in her career, taking on more and more responsibilities. I also thrived at Allied Accounting and took a leave of absence to get my CPA certification. Mr. Karstadt, the owner of Allied, took me under his wing and taught me many things that could not be found in books or courses. One day after work, he took me out to dinner and told me he was negotiating the sale of the firm to a large accounting group. He said, "Michael, you're my best employee, but you won't thrive under the new owner. I think you need to leave Allied before the buyout and start your own practice. They will kill your entrepreneurial spirit and leave you miserable. You have an entrepreneurial nature that needs to be realized. Please think about it and start planning for your future. I'll make sure you take some clients with you when you leave so you won't be out of work." I was stunned and didn't know what to say other than thank you to this person I admired and respected. Christina and I discussed it all weekend. She said, "Just stay the course and remain an employee of the new firm. Forget risky entrepreneurship and work hard to get a promotion in the coming years. You'll be able to make a good salary as a CPA at a big firm." Yes, if that's what I want to do for the next 35 years, Christine, I'm afraid I'm going to start getting weighed down by the debits and credits I'll be handling every day. This is my chance to break out of my routine and do what I've dreamed of doing since I was in high school. I'll start by working here at home while I build up my clientele, and then I'll move to the office. Michael, I don't think that's a wise move. We have 2 young children. We can't afford to take any risks, was her wise advice to the banker. I can't wait until the end of my life to take the risk. For me, it's either now or never, I said. Christina frowned. I don't like it, but I can't stop you. Make sure it works or I'll be really mad at you. And in fact, don't expect me to fund this venture. I'm opening a new account for my income. I'll cover half of the household expenses, and you'll have to handle the other half. I'll do my best, Christina, I replied, though inside I wanted to add, thanks for the support, bitch. She'd made it clear that she wouldn't co-sign loans on my new business. If things go south, she wants to stay on the sidelines, acting like a bitch. She also said she didn't want anything to do with her bank, but I was sure she would change her mind when I started making serious money. Over the next year, things were tight. Christina was steadily bringing home money, while my contribution was erratic. By the end of the second year, I was making a little more than Christina, but she would rather I had a steady monthly income. It seemed boring. My business model was changing, and I was getting more and more involved in business advice to prospects, rather than just keeping records of money received and spent. It was what I wanted to do, and I was successful at it. Since I was making more money than Christina, I started putting more money into my startup. I set my personal income at Christina's income level and invested anything above that amount. What I liked to do was this. If I had a promising business, I would reduce or waive my consulting fees to get a share of the profits. I would take 5 to 15% of the ownership for my consulting services and reduce the monthly accounting fees for their business. This worked very well for both parties. It reduced the required startup capital for clients and gave them the ability to get my sound analysis and recommendations at any time. It was impossible to audit the firms I invested in because I was their investor, but I was fine with that. The increase in value of the companies was far greater than the accounting fees I was losing. The companies could buy back my share at any time at an agreed-upon market value formula. The only person who was unhappy with this arrangement was Christina. She really disliked my investing in startup businesses, and I stopped telling her about it. My accounting corporation's revenues were not reaching the level she thought they should be. Instead of income, I was building net worth, but this was not reflected on the balance sheet because the stock purchased was valued at the actual purchase price, which was quite low. Because I had employees with deep knowledge and high skill sets, I had the luxury of spending more time with my children. However, the 3 months of tax season were a different story. I tried not to miss any of their plays, concerts, or sporting events. I handled all the parenting duties, including attending school meetings, often without Christina's input. Those were good years. The kids were happy, and Christina and I were doing better than most people our age. Because of her knowledge and hard work, Christina was promoted to assistant vice president of the bank, with several people reporting to her. With this promotion, she decided that we needed a bigger and nicer house to match her new status. When I suggested we wait, she responded with her decision until the following Saturday. She went to a real estate show and signed a contract to move. I was not pleased, but there was nothing I could do about it. Thanks to my membership in the Chamber of Commerce, I became friends with several loan officers from the bank where Christina worked. They told me that she referred to me as the little accountant. This disrespect began to manifest itself at home in the form of snide remarks about how other accounting firms were succeeding while I seemed to be idle. I was not invited to join her at Christmas and summer parties at the bank. While I didn't consider it a fun time, I felt she didn't want me around her professionally. It was time to talk to her about our relationship. On Saturday afternoon, I asked her to sit with me for a few minutes in the living room. With irritation on her face, she said, "Can it wait? I'm trying to finish my laundry." "Thanks, but I think it's important. Let's reschedule for tonight. Can you find 15 minutes in your schedule?" Over her shoulder as she walked away, I heard her, "Yes, I can do that." Then she went back to her business. I didn't bring it up for the rest of the day, as I wanted to use this as an example of her ignoring me and thinking my wishes weren't important. My attempt to talk after the kids went to bed was cut short because she was tired, Sunday morning, we couldn't talk because the kids were going to Sunday school, and then we all went to church together. When the girls went outside to chat with the neighborhood kids, I saw Christina grab her purse and head for the door. I stopped her and asked her, "Do you have a few minutes to talk to me?" She snapped back, "Why have you been hitting on me with this all weekend? You're acting like a little boy who demands mommy's attention. Can't you see I'm leaving to help mommy with her checkbook? I'll be back in an hour. Can it wait?" "It's been 24 hours since I asked for 15 minutes of your time. I can wait another hour." It was 4 hours before she got home and hurried into the kitchen to make dinner. Of course, I wouldn't be able to talk to her then. We were halfway through dinner when I turned to her and said, "I think now would be a good time to talk." An indignant expression appeared on her face. "I feel like we're drifting further and further apart, and I'm really worried about our marriage." Christina's fork clattered onto her plate, and the girls turned their heads in my direction. "We don't talk to each other like we used to, and I feel like you don't respect me as a husband. I feel like we need to talk about this before it becomes a real problem." Gritting her teeth, she replied, "This is not the time or place for that conversation. I'm surprised you brought it up in front of the girls. You should be ashamed of yourself. Christina, by ignoring me for 30 hours after I asked to talk, you've shut me out again. Is there something going on here I should know about?" She pushed back her chair, carried her plate to the kitchen, and walked out of the house. Well, I guess our conversation took less time than I expected. My daughters were shocked by the confrontation. Miranda asked with tears in her eyes, "Are we all getting divorced?" I calmly replied, "No, honey, no one is going to get divorced. Remember how you and your sister used to fight sometimes? Moms and dads argue sometimes too, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other or you and Monica. Mom didn't run away from home. She just went for a ride." That seemed to calm them down, but not me. I cleaned up the kitchen, did a little work in my office, and then put the girls and myself to bed. I went to the bedroom thinking that if she didn't like it, she could sleep on the couch. It was about midnight when she came into the bedroom. She undressed and walked over to the bed. I lifted the covers so she could join me. She pressed herself against me and said, "I'm not saying I was wrong, but I'll try to treat you with the respect I want from you as well." I hugged her and whispered, "I think this is perfect. I want to be the best husband for you." That diffused the tension in the house for a while. A few years later, she was promoted to vice president of the compliance department, which meant studying and ensuring that the bank complied with the rules and regulations of the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, and the comptroller of the currency. She had the perfect philosophy for the role. In her view, no action should be taken that has not been specifically approved by the appropriate governing body. This is the complete opposite of my philosophy. If there is no rule prohibiting it, then you can do it. Is there any doubt that this has caused strife in our family? Good thing she didn't know about my investments. They were legal, but fiscals like her didn't approve of them. Just about that time, she started going to bachelorette parties on Tuesdays. The more she attended them, the later she came home. Our children were already 16 and 14, so they didn't need a nanny, but they still needed parental supervision and involvement. I was always there for them. One Tuesday night, I heard a furious scolding coming from our bathroom and went upstairs to see what was wrong. Christina was standing at the sink yelling, "Shit, shit, shit." "What's wrong?" I asked. She bellowed as if I had left something nasty in the sink. "My damn wedding ring fell in the sink. Can you get it out or should I call a plumber?" I didn't like her hint of my abilities. Looking under the sink, I said, "If it's left in the siphon, I'll get it out. It'll only take a minute." Again, in an accusatory tone, as if I had dropped the ring, she said, "Don't worry, I won't need it today anyway." Wow, I thought. You're going on a date and you don't need a wedding ring? This alerted me, and I realized I needed more information right away. I decided to keep quiet, but be vigilant. With a quick glance at her, I saw that she had moved into the bedroom and was putting on a sexy thong, an undergarment I hadn't seen before. She avoided my gaze as she dressed. "Girls' night out?" I asked. "Just like any other Tuesday night. Don't you remember?" She snapped back. Feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere, I went to the garage to get pliers to remove the siphon. She slipped out of the house without a word. Since the drain was on her side of the double sink, I had to remove a lot of her stuff before I could get to the siphon. I was surprised to see a plain brown box in the backyard where the toilet paper was stored. I was even more surprised when I looked inside and saw an enema and syringe kit. What the hell? She was always complaining about irritable bowel syndrome and diarrhea, even though I thought it was irritable bitch syndrome. Since when did she need to use a syringe? Picking out the contents, I discovered the enema nozzle was wet. This is serious. I think it's true. The husband is always the last to know. But what I really knew right now wasn't enough. When working on a new business plan, I've always made it a point to learn absolutely everything about the venture, both good and bad. That's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start researching. But first, I still had to get under the sink to find her damn ring. Maybe she'd need it. Maybe she wouldn't. Time would tell. I marked the spot on the floor where the brown box had been with a pencil. I wanted to see if she would move it within the next week. I also took a picture of the contents of the box to see if she would put the equipment back the way I put it. She got home around midnight, got undressed, closed the bathroom door, and started taking a shower. I tried to pretend I was asleep, but if she touched my chest, she'd find my heart pounding like crazy. She flopped into bed hard enough for me to pretend I had just woken up. Then I heard her light giggle. Bitch. The next morning I was up early, mostly because I couldn't sleep. I had the foresight to close the bathroom door before my shower. Really, I wanted to check the brown box. Sure enough, it had been moved. The spritz nozzle was still wet, and the box had been moved an inch from my line. An enema before a night out, and spritzing on the way to bed. Using a Ziploc bag, I carefully collected her thong and sent it off to be analyzed for semen. It had been over 3 weeks since I had been with her. Being an accountant, I knew what happens with property distribution in divorce. I've done divorce appraisals for husbands and wives. Christina would get the house until the girls went to college, and I would pay alimony and not be able to see them as often as I do now. I probably won't pay alimony if my investments don't count. She thinks they are worthless, and so do I. I wasn't going to pay for a house where she could sleep with another guy while my girls are left unattended. That's not going to happen. Now that I have the information I need, I am embarking on a plan of action. The key point is to retain custody of my girls. I can always make money. I've proven that. I've proven I'm a good father. Now I need to prove she's a bad mother. Poison came to mind. Not chemical poison, but emotional poison. Christina is a perfectionist and expects perfection from everyone around her. When something goes wrong, it drives her crazy. The simplest problems become huge for her. When she loses control, she becomes mean to her coworkers, me, and the kids. I decided to use her poison to turn the kids away from wanting to stay with her after the divorce. Then I get to keep the house and the girls. Quietly, I slip over to her alarm clock and turn it off. She hates people who are late for work. After a late and obviously busy night, she might have wanted to sleep in longer. The kids came in for breakfast and wondered where Mom was. I told them that she came in late and probably decided to sleep in longer. They understood, as they themselves like to sleep in when they have the opportunity. I looked through her cell phone, noticing the late conversations, and turned the video player on mute. Hopefully, by the time she gets up, the cell phone will be dead. She had an important staff meeting scheduled for Wednesday morning. An hour later, I heard yelling and my name being mentioned in vain. Apparently, it was my fault that she slept in after a night out with some guy. I took the opportunity to hide from her wrath in the garage. In one of the tires, I blew out enough air to set off the sensor on her Lexus. She hates it when the alert obscures the screen. She'd go crazy if she watched it all the way to work. Monica and Miranda didn't escape her wrath as she ran around the house trying to get dressed, comb her hair, and put on makeup at the same time. While she was in the garage, I switched the door settings to lock so she couldn't open the roll-up door. As expected, running out of the garage, she hit the opener and didn't notice that the door didn't go up. She crashed her back into the garage door, crumpling the bottom 2 panels. The 3 of us went to the door and saw, but did not hear, the screaming woman hitting the steering wheel. As she moved the Lexus forward, I straightened the panels and lifted the door, letting out a horrified squeal. Christina flew out of the garage with a roar, nearly hitting the mailbox. We could hear her screaming, "Fucking hell, asshole!" all the way down the block. This is turning out to be a lot more interesting than I thought. What will she do when she tries to call the office with a dead cell phone? The less I hear about her problems, the better. I hugged Monica and Miranda, saying, "Mom is a little stressed right now. When she gets home tonight, she'll feel better. She always loves you, and she loves me a little less." Then all 3 of us laughed. The alarm clock in our bedroom was on at maximum volume. I let her make sure it was actually on. Unlike my spouse, I got to work on time that morning. My coworkers always know it's a good day when I walk in the door, whistling. My good mood lasted until 10 o'clock in the morning, when my cell phone suddenly vibrated violently, nearly falling off my desk. It must be my darling calling me, I thought. "Good morning, darling," was all I had time to say before the profanities started. In a shrill voice I heard, "You need to get your ass over here and fix my tire. I almost got killed driving that dangerous car. If you had let me have that Mercedes I wanted, we wouldn't have this problem. Now fix it." I replied carelessly, "You have AAA coverage, don't you? Just give them a call and they'll fix it." "Fuck you," was her response. I knew from her expression that she wasn't going to sleep with me tonight. In the morning, everything went so smoothly that I told my assistant that I had a few errands to run and would be back after lunch. First, I went to the security store and bought some small cameras for the house and a voice recorder that I could hide in my purse. I needed to know what was going on around me. Then, I came home and installed cameras in the living room and bedroom. I made the panels in the garage usable, although they were somewhat clunky. They screamed, "Some stupid fool rear-ended me," for all the neighbors to hear and chuckle at. Upon returning to work, I went through all my personal banking and investment files. We only had one shared credit card, and I canceled it. The one shared bank account was for household needs, so I left it open, but reminded myself to make sure her share went into the account every time she got a paycheck. As usual, I got home before Christina and was already preparing dinner when I heard the creak and groan of the garage door opening. The FBI couldn't have opened the door any harder than Christina did. She walked over to me and said, "I've never had such a shitty day. I'm going to go upstairs and soak in the bathroom." The girls and I ate dinner quietly, whispering like 12-year-old kids. Then I went upstairs and asked if she wanted dinner, and she threw me a bar of soap and growled, "If I wanted dinner, I'd have told you. Now leave me alone." It was the perfect moment to make a small cut in her purse and put the recorder inside the lining. I went back downstairs and fell asleep on the couch in the living room. I didn't at all want to be in the same bed with her when her alarm clock screeches to life tomorrow morning. The sound of the latest rap song on the radio alarm clock was preceded by a loud "moodak" from my spouse, followed by the screams of 2 frightened teenagers. There wasn't a sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps who would have created more noise early in the morning than my ladies did that day. While Christina was busy in the bathroom, I took the opportunity to go into the garage and put some dark brown grease from my lawnmower on the seat of her car. After sitting on that, she might have felt like she'd gotten shit-canned on the way to work, this time literally, not figuratively. We got about as much rage from her as we had the night before. I also smeared the skirt she was wearing the night before for convincing, and hopefully to have someone to blame it on. A few hours later, when she was already asleep, I got out of bed and retrieved a voice-activated recorder from her purse. Transferring the recordings to my laptop, I charged it and returned it to my purse. The next morning, after Christina and the girls left the house, I listened to the recordings. The restaurant and club were quite noisy, but the recorder successfully captured the activity at the Motel 6. I found out that her boyfriend's name was Keith. I also found out that they spent every Tuesday night together and every other Thursday afternoon at the Hyatt Hotel during business hours. Christina took turns booking rooms at the Hyatt with Keith, and they maintained a joke about a conservative bank president who unknowingly helped them. They paid for the rooms with their corporate cards while meeting colleagues from out of town. Keith pointed out that I was good with numbers while raising the number of times he sleeps with my wife. Christina chuckled at the fact that my calculator was going to explode. "When are you going to divorce your accountant husband, for?" he asked. "Right after Miranda goes to college. I love my girls, but I don't want to miss out on the best years of my life running after soccer games. He's a good dad, but I just can't be with him anymore. I've tried to help him be more successful, but he won't. He's just wasting his life." "If you dislike him so much, why don't you divorce him now? Make him pay child support and spend more time with me?" Keith asked. She laughed. "If I got divorced and got alimony, I'd still have to pay for childcare, a maid, and a cook. Now he does it for free, and I can hide part of my paycheck so he can't find it in the divorce. I use it for household expenses and build up a secret stash." "When do you plan to arrange a divorce from your frigid wife?" Keith asked. "It's been planned for a long time. Her father made me sign a prenup before the wedding. I agreed, but added a term of 20 years. 3 more years and I'll have half of her multi-million-dollar stock portfolio." "See, the timing is perfect. The end of your contract coincides with Miranda going to college. Then we can both leave," she concluded, laughing. Hearing this conversation, I felt shocked that there were people as selfish and conniving as they were. Their schadenfreude and contempt for each other seemed mutual. I was sure they would spend a terrible time together, each trying to cheat the other both sexually and financially. They were paranoid about their safety, swapped weeks at a time in booking rooms at the Hyatt, so neither of them could use the hotel more than once a month. Now she checked her tires and made sure the garage door was closed before driving out. However, her nasty demeanor continued to annoy both me and the girls. Predictably, tests showed traces of semen on her pirate thong panties. I now had enough evidence to contact a lawyer and begin the divorce process. I instructed Stephen Green, my attorney, to claim full custody of the girls since I was primarily their guardian. Judging by the way their mother had behaved, surely the girls would not want to deal with her. Stephen warned, "It's going to be difficult." I suggested that we each own the house half until it is sold after both girls leave for college. We would both keep our own investments and retirement funds. Since I kept my income at a level comparable to hers, we wouldn't have to pay child support. She would have to pay me a standard child care benefit, including college education. We had saved enough for tuition, housing, books, and food, but not for additional expenses. While she became a full-time VP, she participated in a deferred compensation program at the bank. I decided to leave that account as is, in case she wanted a portion of my partnership investment. Then I could use her deferred compensation as a counter-argument. To prepare for the divorce, I started moving important items out of the house and stockpiling them. I also backed up data to an external hard drive every day and kept it separate from my computer. I hoped to keep the house for myself, but I didn't know how violent she would be when she received the summons. On the recommendation of my attorney, I also hired a private investigator to find out who Keith was and where he worked. To speed up the process, I provided his license plate information. At the end of each fiscal year, the bank begins the budgeting process for the following year. Each department undergoes an evaluation of their performance, and then the senior management team hosts a formal event at the Hyatt Hotel. This event includes a tuxedo and evening gown party for senior executives and their spouses, and many of them book a room at the Hyatt. Christina told me about this event years ago, but by the time she became a member of this group, I felt unworthy. She kept reminding me about this event, hoping it would be my motivation to succeed. I didn't care as long as I didn't get bored in the company of these people. Almost every day I went through her closets and drawers looking for more information about her cheating. The week before the event, I found a new box from a pair of fancy Jimmy Choo evening shoes hidden in the back of her closet. That's where I always started my search, in the depths of a closet or drawer. However, the price of those shoes made me freeze. They cost over $1,000. Given that the appointment was in a few days, I had to figure out how to deal with it. The idea of replacing the shoes with an old pair of boots or even Crocs came up. However, I decided to do something different. Carefully but decisively, I turned the high heel of the shoes a few degrees to the side using a table vise. The shoes were put back in place, and the box was neatly tucked back away. This episode with the box taught me to respect other people's belongings. The day before the event, the investigator called me and asked me to come to his office. He had important information. He told me that Christina's lover was Keith Miller, a senior loan officer at the bank. This could seriously affect their careers, given their professional responsibilities and the ban on romantic relationships within the company. I asked the investigator to set up cameras to capture the meeting of senior executives at the Hyatt Hotel on Friday night. He already had a picture of Christina, and I asked him to record her walking and dancing. Our work together gave me hope for a successful conclusion to our marriage. The evening before the event, I watched a movie that was so funny that even the investigator couldn't contain his laughter as we watched the tape. Christina was moving so clumsily, like she was drunk. She was stumbling, bumping into chairs, and even knocking over wine bottles. I decided to submit this clip to America's Funniest Video as soon as Christina agreed to it. Of course, Christina and Keith sequestered themselves in his hotel room to sleep the night away. All of this was documented by a tiny video camera slipped under the door of their hotel. Isn't it great how technology has improved our lives in the last few years? Although Christina got home before noon on Saturday, we didn't see her until late Sunday morning. Spiritually speaking, she should have gone to church that morning, but she stayed home. Christina used to always come home from work on Wednesday afternoons, tired. I believe this was due to her late classes on Tuesday night. She would walk into the house and immediately lie down in the bubble bath. This Wednesday was going to be different. I was going to change the amount of hot water in her tub. She barked what might be called a hello at me as she walked to the bathroom. I waited while she found the right combination on the hot and cold water faucet for the tub. I heard the sink running and realized she was washing up, so I went to the back room. Our house has separate water lines to each faucet, and there is a manifold on the wall that regulates the amount of water in each line. I quickly shut off the hot water line in the bathroom, allowing cold water to fill the tub. As soon as I heard the water stop flowing into the tub, I turned the hot water valve back on. A horrible sound I heard from my lovely wife as she slid into the tub of cold water. Of course, the bubbles made the water slippery, and she was thrashing around, trying to grab onto something to pull herself out of the cool water. When I rushed into the bathroom to help her, she completely ripped the towel rack off the wall in an attempt to get out. This forced her back under the cold water. It was the hardest thing I could do to keep from laughing out loud. Finally, I pulled her out, swearing, slipping, shivering, and dousing herself with water. Of course, she slapped me for not having hot water. With a howl, both girls flew into the bathroom to see their naked mother throwing another fit. She then turned to her daughters. "You dirty little bitches! You used up all the hot water, and I couldn't get the relaxation I needed. Damn you!" She stomped into the bedroom to get dressed, and the girls burst into tears. They turned to her to tell her they hadn't used the hot water, but she shouted at them, "Shut up! I don't want to hear pathetic excuses. Get out of my sight." Which they did, running away crying. This is worse than I thought. I didn't think she would go after them. After me, yes, but not after them. I made the real mistake of thinking where her anger might come out. Then she turned to me. "What the fuck are you looking at, asshole? Fix my bathtub. You think you can do one simple thing in my house?" I invited her into the tub and turned on the hot water again. It was very hot. I took her hand and splashed hot water on it and said, "You have a lot of hot water." I stared at her for a few seconds without saying anything, and then I went to dinner with the girls somewhere else. To hell with the dinner I was making. As the girls sobbed, I stopped the car a few blocks away to comfort them. I told them, "I'm so sorry you had to endure that tirade. You didn't deserve it. You are wonderful children, and I am very proud of you. Please forgive your mother for her actions, and forgive me for letting this happen. Forgive me for that. That calmed them down and reminded me that I had to be careful when separating the three of us from Christina. It was too much fun torturing her. By the time we snuck back into the house, it was already time to go to bed. I left the kitchen dishes where they were and laid down on the couch in the living room. In the middle of the night, I felt a presence, like something evil was coming toward me. It did. Christina stood there looking at me. "Yes?" was the only sound I could utter. She just stood there. Finally, she said, "I shouldn't have yelled at the girls like that. It wasn't their fault in the slightest. I must have turned the wrong knob. Over the last month, I've been so overwhelmed and upset about so many things that went wrong. Flat tires, garage doors, faulty evening shoes. Every little thing irritates me to the max. I need to get my life back on track.